Let's start with Arsenal. Graeme, how important is it that they manage to turn it around? This is the kind of statement that we haven't seen from Arsenal yet.
It was, given what the sort of Selhurst Park and Liverpool dropping those points. I think it didn't turn up the pressure, but it just showed, Arsenal, they came to game, they knew what they needed to do, and a bit like match play in golf or the Ryder Cup maybe, they knew what they needed to do and they got it done. St James is never an easy place to go. And I thought they caught pretty well, Arsenal. Did they deserve it? I'm sure Newcastle fans would argue against it. But, now the whole Premier League it seems to be really ramping up now. Arsenal back within 3 points. It makes it so interesting. I know we've only six games this season have gone and we're talking about how big these games are. But if they hadn't won that game, I think it would have been pretty big. But now they're within 3 points of Liverpool, and it really makes for a good few weeks going into national break.
A lot of money, Kieran, has been spent on assembling this Arsenal squad, and there's obviously pressure on Mikel Arteta to deliver some silverware, specifically perhaps a Premier League title to Arsenal. In terms of the investment, at what point does that outlay become too much pressure for the manager and he could lose his job if they don't win?
Well, if we take a look at the Arsenal wage bill, they've been overtaken by Spurs as recently as 2 seasons ago. And Spurs are always lauded and applauded under Daniel Levy for keeping it tight as far as wages. So to be overtaken by Spurs was a bit of a surprise, I think, for many people. But the average wage, based on my figures, has gone from 100 to 150 grand a week in 2 seasons. So there's been substantial investment. The total squad cost now exceeds £1 billion. There's not many clubs in that category. So it is a very substantial investment. And if you talk to investors, they want a return. Now, Stan Kroenke does not need a financial return. He'll probably like one, but he's got enough money. I've seen the size of his ranch. He's not going to be worrying about things from a monetary point of view. I think Josh Kroenke in particular wants to see that return on investment, as do the fans, in terms of success on the pitch. So therefore, the deal as far as the club is concerned to Arteta is that we've given you the resources, we've given you the investment. It's up to you now to deliver. And therefore, there is pressure. I mean, there's pressure on every manager in the Premier League. There's no doubt about it. But I think that the club will say, we've done our part of the bargain. It's now up to you to do the remainder. I think it's interesting this morning that looking at the bookies odds, Arsenal are now favourites to win the Premier League title, despite Liverpool having until Saturday a perfect start to the season. So there is still a belief in football circles that Arsenal have the depth in squad to achieve on a variety of levels as far as sporting success is concerned. So that increases the pressure on the manager.
Graeme, you mentioned earlier that 6 games in, talking about title races is crazy, but the idea that the bookies have changed their favourite, and I think the nature of Arsenal's win, not if they'd just gone on 1-2-0, I don't think that would have people talking about them in quite the same way, but the fact that they showed a resilience that they've been questioned of having, came from behind, won it really late. Does it change your perception of this Arsenal team? Does it change your perception of Mikel Arteta as a manager?
It doesn't change mine, because I thought he was world class anyway. And what Arsenal have been doing, as Kieran alluded to, off the pitch, they've tied down William Saliba. It seems a matter of time before Saka signs his new deal as well. Arsenal are performing wonderfully well on and off the pitch, and are they the best run club in the Premier League? They must be getting towards it. But yeah, they do have to start producing the goods, and I think the bookmakers' odds might be more related to Liverpool in terms of what we've seen them this season. Obviously, it was the first blip we've seen from Liverpool this season. They had a 100% record before they went to Palace, but it wasn't convincing. It hasn't been at any point. So I think that's where we're coming from here. I think the way Liverpool have been playing does open it up, and Arsenal are very much in the mix now, and I think Man City are as well. But I think it's going to be a really fascinating race going in here. We look back to last season, was it 4 defeats that Arsenal and Liverpool suffered last season, something like that? So we can see you can afford the odd defeat here and there, but just not too many of them. But Arsenal look great. Odegaard came on yesterday. I love Odegaard. I really think there's not a better midfielder in the Premier League, arguably Europe, than him. And when he came off the bench, there's so much depth there now with Zubimendi, Mourinho, Odegaard, Rice. the depth there is so impressive for Arsenal. You know, Eze is there, even though they've got injuries to Madueke, but Madueke was playing great, but they just push on, don't they? They don't notice he's not there. Gyökeres just, I know he didn't score yesterday, but he just offers something different to them. Arsenal are a different animal this season, they really are, and I think Liverpool, Arnie Slot won't say this, but I think if they are worried about one team, it will be Arsenal.
He might say it. No, I imagine he wouldn't. Kieran, are we now seeing value on the pitch when it comes to Arsenal spending?
You're best asking me that at the end of the season, I guess. Yeah, because if they finish second again, then Mikel Arteta, this is one for the kids. Mikel Arteta will be known as the Jimmy White of football management, and therefore, it's a bit like being in Scotland. Being second is not good enough if you're one of the elite clubs. So I think we will have to address that. Either the Champions League or the Premier League title, I think, would be acceptable. Carabao Cup, ideally not, mainly because they got Brighton in the next round. So I've got a vested interest in saying that, of course. But I think it would have to be one of the senior competitions to say that the investment has proved to be justified.
Is that your view, Graeme? Like, if Arsenal did win the League Cup this season, that season would be considered more or less a failure, even though it would be their first trophy in 5 years or so?
Oh, totally. Arsenal are in win now mode, but it's to win the big competitions. They need to be champions of England and or Europe, and that's what they're here to do. No doubt about it. You know, even if they won the League Cup and FA Cup double, that would not be a successful season for Arsenal. Arsenal are here to be champions, and that will they end up being so? I think it'll take a good team to beat them.